This is Harry Man back, Francesco from Rome, Italy, and you're listening to the Spiral Out podcast with your host, Chris West.
How you like that new intro? Super cool. Thanks, Harry Manback, Francesco, for recording that for me as a favor. He's got a new book out. If you see it around, purchase it, read it, enjoy it, ingest it, love it, hate it. I bought one. I'll be reading it when it shows up from Rome, Italy. On our show today, we have Mike Gamble, a true inspiring story he tells on the podcast, a metaphorical rags to riches story. Again, metaphorical. The guy's doing fine. No, it's very inspiring to sit and talk with him, to hear how his tool poster became a reality. And we also touch on a lot of cool subjects: alchemy, trying to achieve goals and dreams, and just enjoying tool and art in general. It's a very inspiring podcast, in my opinion. They're all great, but this one, I think, this one was very close to home, you know? And I'm sure on some level, every artist starts from zero in this void of not, but I think rarely we get to see the nexus point. And Mike has been around and in the groups and in the community, so it's super inspiring, and it's very cool to see his art be featured as a tool poster. And it's also really awesome to see that he's a really nice guy, very articulate, to see more of his art on tool posters. Enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Harry Manback, and Spiral Out. 1, 2. Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spiral Out Podcast. I'm your host, Chris West. On today's show, we have Mike Gamble, right? Gamble?
Yep.
Pretty straightforward name. You recently got one of your pieces of art made into a tool poster. In the first one of the tour in Loveland, Colorado, right? A lot to talk about there. There's a whole, I'm sure there's a whole story behind that, but not only just the poster, but you were kind of in the tool groups before that, right? And a fan for a long time. But I guess let's just start with that initial. I'm sure Adam reached out to you at some point.
Yeah, so there was another one of the tool artists from, ironic, is actually the Philly show from, this was like 2019 tour, I believe, was Carly. She did the Carly Schmidt. She did the it was like a figure holding like the DNA strand. And it was just through Reddit, I saw her piece, messaged her on Instagram, was like, hey man, this is like incredible art. You're really talented. She's like, hey, I'm doing the poster show for Philly. Don't tell anybody. And I was like, hell yeah. So that kind of gave me the idea of like, well, hell, like I do art.
Hell yeah.
Why not kind of shoot my shot? And it was like pre-COVID. So it was just like a nice thing to do. So I do printmaking as my day job. Obviously COVID happened, so I'm stuck at home. And this was like this nice little thing to basically keep myself busy. So I just started doing different designs. And the first one I did, I had messaged it to Adam, just tagged him on Instagram. And then he, just messaged me and said, hey, you want to do this for a poster? Obviously, yes.
Yeah, right.
And then, of course, COVID happened. So it just became this like kind of lull waiting game. So it was like November 2019, I thought I was in. And then 2020, then the next tour finally happened. And he was like, hey, I'm really sorry. We had a backlog, obviously, because the tour got canceled. He's like, but I'll keep you in mind. So I kept holding my breath. And then finally, it just finally panned out.
You had to wait like 40 years.
Yeah, I did.
What?
Yes, I did.
That's freaking wild.
About it here and there, but, I just kept tagging my brains out and throwing it out there,
Because I remember about a year ago, I think I saw the Portal Portal. What's it called? Portal Owl.
Porta Alchemica. It's a space, the specific place in Rome. I did a study abroad, and it's like not really many people know about it. I've actually had like people in Rome message me being like, "How the hell do you know about this place?" You know, it's not like the Colosseum or any of the main tourist attractions. And it is very bizarre. It's like in this piazza. It's fenced off. You can't really get close to it. You wouldn't really think anything about it, but when I was there, I tried to look up all kinds of goofy, real specific places, and that was like this cool little niche spot. It's got like goofy stories behind it. You know, there's all kinds of folklore people believe, and that was like an illustration of one of these stories, basically.
So I definitely want to get into that a little later. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around 40 years.
I know. Because it took a long time.
Because from what I understand, or my experience with talking to artists, they're usually just like, yeah, he hit me up, and a few months later it was on a poster, yada yada yada. But again, I think it just adds to your unique experience with within the poster, I guess, echelon in general. Like, because you're an obvious fan, like, and I'm not saying most the poster artists aren't fans, but there's a large chunk of them that are Adam's friends from school,
right,
fine artists from around the world. And again, not that you're not any one of these,
right? Hey, no, but
but you definitely, well, you definitely had a goal in mind, like you. And I'm not saying this agenda was bad. You had an agenda. You're like, I want to make a Tool poster. And and you did, and I think it. I think maybe because you wanted it, the universe put you through it.
Basically, I was like that initial. It was like too easy. The first one I did, and honestly, it's funny. Like I look back on them, and I kind of want to redo those first three because they were pencil drawings. It was like more simplistic. I'm a printmaker normally. I went to college for that. That's what I got my degree in, and I would do these reduction prints, and they're like very labor intensive. If you know anything about printmaking, they're just like very complicated stamps essentially.
Yeah, I saw you some on your Instagram, like the big wooden dial thing that you're turning.
Yep. Crank it through the press, and then to get color, you put it through the press once, carve the block a little bit more, put the paper back down. It's called registration in the exact same spot. Put it through the press again. You just keep repeating that process for every color, and it's very labor intensive, but it doesn't get the quality and the detail that I kind of like strive for. So this was like my, kind of diving back into the more, I guess it's still fine art, but the pencil drawing and painting and whatnot. So that first one I did, I shot him an email, a DM, and immediately he just responded back. I believe he just wrote, poster art ? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And he asked for my phone number. Gave him my phone number, but then it was just radio silence. And I guess he was getting the rumblings of COVID and potentially canceling the tour. And then the tour got canceled. So then it was just nothing. Sure. And then, a year, whatever it took before they rescheduled the tour, I messaged him again. Then that's when he sent me a message that said like, hey man, I'm really sorry. And it was like, it's a DM, so it's beyond nice of them to take the time even to just
because I'm sure he's getting a gazillion DMs.
Right, exactly. And I keep that in mind the whole time. I'm like, I guarantee I'm one of hundreds of people messaging this poor guy in his DMs.
Oh, if not thousands.
Right, for sure.
At least when it comes to social media DMs. I got a text message from him one time, and I texted him back like an actual phone. I don't know how he got I know how he got my phone number, but I didn't give it to him.
Right.
And we like text back and forth for like about 5 minutes. And then he was like, I'll get back to you. And that was like 4 months ago.
Right.
5 months ago. Maybe even longer. God, it's probably been like 8 months. So
that's pretty much how it went for me. It's just like, kind of just keeps rolling.
And you kind of snuck in there early too.
Yeah. I think that's probably like, obviously as 4 years goes on, you start to doubt and you start to wonder what the hell happened, what's going on. I think it's just, shit happens. The guy has kids, he's running a band, he's running, so stuff falls through the cracks. But hey, I'm beyond appreciative that he, hooked me up for this one.
You see, what was her name in Philly again?
She's from.
She did the Philly poster.
She did the Philly poster. I want to say she's from like Kentucky or.
Because I know the poster you're talking about. It's like the hot chick holding the thing.
It's one of my favorites. I was like beyond fucking, stoked when she said, "Oh, I'm doing the Philly poster." I was like, "Hell, I'm gonna be selfish." Hell
She
yeah.
had some great remarks too.
Yeah, no, she's good. She's a really talented artist.
So
For sure.
she tells you, and then you're like, I'm going
Yeah,
for
right.
it.
It just spurred me the idea. I was like, you know what? Why not shoot my shot and take it?
So you do
Go
the
for it.
so all right, from that moment where she tells you and you decide I'm going to do a tool poster, how long before you created the portal?
That one was a couple down the line. So I did that one. The original, it was for Numa. It was like the song that really kind of like was impactful for me when Fear Not
Sure.
came out. So that was the first one I did. And I still am contemplating. I think I want to do a painted version of it just to make it a little bit more fleshed out. But the portal really wasn't. That was one of the last ones I did. So then I did Descending. I did Invincible was the first oil painting. So that was like my jump. I hadn't done oil painting since college, and I have a decent idea of how to do it, but it was still daunting. So did the Invincible one, and then maybe was the portal. So this was like years later. I finally did this portal,
Okay,
and
okay.
when I had posted that one, he reached out and he says, "Hey, do you sell these?" I'm like, yeah, yeah, I do." So I ended up actually sending that one to him.
Like
That one's in
the
the
actual
original, yeah.
painting? All right,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to answer this, but what do you charge a guy like Adam Jones for something like that?
I definitely hooked him up. I typically like my own stuff. I would charge $5,000 for it. It takes me. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to painting, so it's called wet on wet. I mix color on canvas. I'm really not good at doing the like being very decisive with my color choices. Anyway, long story short, it takes me a long damn time to paint.
Sure.
So it's like easily months of work. But when Adam reached out, like I said this when they called me to get the poster deal. I was like, hey, not to like show my hand or anything, but like I would do this for free.
Uh-huh.
I'm just into it. I'm stoked.
Yeah.
It's such a cool opportunity. Honestly, I'm in it just to get my artwork on a poster for myself.
Yeah.
So I basically said the same thing to Adam. I'm like, hey, like I'll hook you up. Obviously, I'll still charge you, but
Yeah.
I definitely gave him a good.
All right. So I'm looking at your stuff online, right? I'm
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
seeing Tempest, Invincible, Calling,
Oh yes, I think I did
Portal.
Tempest. You're right. I did Tempest before. Like I'm pretty sure this was one of the later paintings that I did.
So the first one you did was Numa,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's the one that you sent to him.
Yeah, that was the original one that I just tagged him up, put it in the DMs, and that was the one that he initially just quickly, like,
He's like, I want it.
yeah, he was like, "Hey, you want to do this for a poster?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I think this was me like sussing out things
Sure.
over the internet. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be for a King Crimson tool tour, and that's when King Crimson, I forget his name, the bassist, had posted right when COVID happened and said, "Unfortunately, we were in the midst of planning this and it fell through." So that was like an extra,
Are you
shot to the gut where
are
I
you a
was
King
like, "Oh
Crimson
my
fan?
god!" Oh hell yeah! I've
Nice.
seen them. They're one of the most like right neck and neck with the Tool in terms of their quality of shows. They put on a hell of a show.
Nice. I've never seen them. I've never
Oh, they're
really.
good.
I think they were a little past my time. I mean, maybe
Hmm,
not.
hmm.
They just kind of scanned over me, I guess.
Yeah. No, they're like a prog rock.
Yeah.
They have their moment. Like initially when I was in college, I got into their like 70s psychedelic kind of vibe. It's like I guess you could say it's similar to like a Pink Floydy kind of style. They're very good
It's a little heavier though,
instrumentals
right?
and yeah, oh
Yeah.
definitely. And then they got Adrian Belew, and then that became a like heavy prog. And over time, like originally, I didn't really get into that era, but now I just kind of listen to all of it.
Sure.
And I don't know if they tour anymore, but their last couple tours, man, were what's his name? Robert Fripp is quite the musician.
Fair enough. Back to the. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
curious about this whole, 4 years. And then
Uh-huh.
we'll eventually move on. But
Hey,
so
no.
it's just so interesting that, you had this goal. You, again, I don't know if you already answered this, but how fast between deciding the poster and creating Numa, how long did that take?
So the first one, because the tour is ongoing,
Yeah.
Carly had her thing. It was the Philly show. It was probably the show was around November-ish. because that's like, so it was like a month. I like cranked that one out, and
Sure.
I don't even think I was done the drawing it. I scanned it and I like fudged the colors or like the contrast in Photoshop just to get it out there.
Yeah.
And it worked. He reached out, so it did work. But
And that's not even the one that now
Right.
is. So, which leads me to my next question: are we going to see that one later? Maybe.
Hey, I hope so.
I hope so. You're not going to confirm nor deny that you may or may not have more Tool posters coming out. You never know.
I will spill the full. I have no idea. No,
Fair enough.
Not even being coy. I got no clue. I hope so.
Right. Me too. So
It would be incredible.
So, all right. So you get this tease, right? And where does the Tool groups come in? So do you join those, or were you already a part of those?
So I think it was around the time with getting, because I just wanted to get normally like I'm not like an avid collector, but I do. I mean, as you can see in my background, I collect all the posters of the shows I attend purely as like a printmaker. I just like love to have it in my archive. I try to hang up as many as I can, and I'm running out of room. But
I feel you.
I usually like to get the one. So I joined, all the Facebook groups. There's the one Tool Loot now. There's different poster groups, and even just like the fan groups I had been, since college, since I was a kid. I really was crazy into Tool in high school, 13.
Yeah, me too.
When
How
I
old
first
are you?
discovered him. 34.
Okay, yeah, we're the same age.
Right on. Right on. So that was I think it was like Lateralis coming out was my first, introduction to Tool. Then obviously like the lag between Lateralis and 10,000 Days, and then the second lag, other bands come in and out, and not that I ever like lost interest, but it was when Fear Inoculum came back out, it was like this kind of reinvigorating of my fandom,
100%. I have a similar story. I think I got into him around 2000, 2001. So it's like right after Lateralis, or a little bit after. And then again, you just, especially as a young child, you just expect like, oh, they're probably going to come out with another album here any minute. Exactly. And then it's like, oh shit, I'm like in middle school now. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm still listening to these same songs. And all of a sudden I'm a senior. I'm like, wait a second here.
Yeah, right.
I remember listening to, like, I live in Vegas. I grew up in LA, but I live in Vegas. And I think it's 2005, late 2005. And the radio station here was like, we're going to premiere this new Tool song at like 8 a.m.
Yeah, right.
And I was in class. I had headphones on. I had to like find like a old, what was it called? Like cassette
iPod or
a cassette player. This is like 2005. Like trying to find something that I can listen to the radio on.
Oh, right.
And it was the Pot. They played the Pot. And,
okay.
Luckily, I like recorded it on I wish I still had that tape, but I recorded it, and I don't even think they played the whole song. And I just listened to it like a bunch throughout the day. And like you said, it reinvigorated, right? That in 2005. And I became like not crazy obsessed, but just definitely really into it. And then 13 years.
Yeah, right.
Of like,
how about it?
And then, like I said, Fear Inoculum comes out, and you're like, all right, I'm into this. And then, I don't know, just everything exploded with them, which merch, the songs, if stuff came out on Spotify, and it was just like, all right, there's this whole new community I've been waiting literally my whole life for.
Right. And it's funny, like when I would reach out to him, especially I think that like again, this is me just kind of inferring into this, but I think it was like right when Fear Inoculum came out and I reached out to him. I'm sure this was like the wave beginning of people reaching out. And it was just funny that the dude is like extremely humble, and he would thank me. He'd be like, "Oh, thanks so much for sharing the music."
Yeah.
Sure, bud.
Right?
Hell yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah, right. How about it?
Again, in that, what has it been? 4 years since that came out?
4 years.
I'm sure their stress, money, everything has just exploded since then. I mean, they have a whole empire now that just
I know. I was
just didn't exist.
Right. I think it was on Reddit or somebody posted the outside of one of their venues, and it's like 11 semi trucks for the screens.
Yep.
It is an empire. I can't even imagine the crew they
Ugh.
gotta, you know, keep with them for the whole tour. It's unbelievable.
So, back to the art. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. All right, let's take Alex Kuno, this guy, right?
Yeah, I love his work. His
Right.
stuff's good.
The first poster, like Adam reaches out to him and is like, "Hey, do you want to do something for us?" And he creates the art without being a Tool fan, right?
Hmm.
Really, um, creates the art for Tool, and then
Right.
like the next four that just came out is just kind of his own art that Adam kind of picked.
Right.
You're the first person that I've seen that created the art for Tool before Tool asked them.
Right. Right.
Um, and I guess my question is like, all right, let's say for the Numa one, do you listen to
Hmm.
the lyrics and then create
Yeah.
the art,
So
or
that's exactly like ironically, the one that he ended up choosing is for Chocolate Chip Trip. And I had to kind of take some liberties, obviously, because it's an instrumental. And I remember there was like, I think it was the Revolver article, and I could even be misremembering it, but I remember there was somebody interviewing Danny, and he had said something to the effect of like the way he sets his drums up and like methodology. It's all, he's into, Aleister
yeah,
Crowley and magic and all that. So it
sure,
was like, he was, I can't remember the direct quote, but it had something about him like, it's almost like a seance or something in his mind when he's playing his drums. So I kind of pulled that
Mhm.
to
Like a spell?
give him exactly. And that was what I was trying to think to myself, like, what's some cool alchemy things? And that was the place that I had visited in Rome. So that was like the connection for that. But back to like the Numa, that the way I usually make my artwork is like I'll see something throughout the day. It's a slow burn for me. Like I can't just like throw something out there, especially and it's because of the printmaking background. Like they're so labor intensive. I gotta make a block. I got to CNC. I used to do it by hand with a router and prep, and it's a lot of work. So like to get an idea, I have to have my full rounded idea before I can delve in. And it's the same thing with the paintings. I come up with the full design, whole layout, and then I, execute it. So having the lyrics was like, it was like a great blessing in disguise. Again, COVID happens. I got nothing to do. So this was like a great jumping board for a ton of content to be able to be made. So I listened to the lyrics. I then look up different, Greek mythology, other just like things that are relative or kind of inspire it. And then it's just kind of a jumping back and forth. I'll like, if that kind of clues me into a visual, I'll latch onto that, research that a little bit more, latch onto that, and then slowly flesh out the idea. So yeah, every piece, I'll take the lyrics, do a little bit of my own secondary research for things that I feel relate to how I interpret the song, and then slowly make it. But at the end of the day, it's got to look cool,
Oh, for sure, 100%.
whatever gives me a visual that I'm like, ooh,
All
I
right,
could play with that.
so let's kind of delve into the um the portal that you said
Hmm.
that one's Chocolate Chip Trip, right?
Yes, that was the initial inspiration for that
All right,
record.
so that one's unique in itself,
Hmm.
right? Because there's
Hmm.
no lyrics.
Right.
So you don't have to do this, but I would appreciate it if you would explain to me, like, how, because I'm looking at it right now, how that
Hmm.
specifically relates to that song for you.
So that again, because without the lyrics, I had to kind of take some liberties.
Sure.
So my interpretation was this song is like I said, it was like a whatever you want to call it, like a seance or these instrumentals are the process of that alchemical transmutation kind of thing. So that
Yeah.
was the initial. How can I? How the hell can I make a song or a painting inspired by a song that doesn't have any lyrical content?
Sure.
So that was the jumping point. Spurred me with this idea of this place where like I took tons of pictures. So again, it was like really good for me to be able to kind of make my layout. And the story that I chose for that specific piece is this. Forget who it's like. It's a pretty old book. It's definitely like a couple hundred years old. And the allegory of the story that this guy told is that a alchemist was seen going into this piazza. They didn't see the actual thing happen, but they saw a large blast of light, and then when he ran to this portion of the piazza, the only thing that was left was a little pile of gold. So I thought, for me, it was like a
Oh, I
cool
see, I see, I see.
play that obviously, like a lot of the lyrics on, was it The Grudge, is about alchemical transmutation, trying to
Sure.
make gold out of base elements, out of lead. So I thought it was a cool play that, like, this person did successfully make gold, but you have to sacrifice yourself, essentially. He had to, I don't know if he disappeared. I don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happened to the guy, but he's gone,
I didn't notice the gold on the bottom, and him slowly.
His body,
Yeah.
turned into a little bit of flakes, and I don't know if he went into the portal or.
Or if the.
It changes things, right? For me, at least,
Mhm.
because
How about it?
what I originally thought was that this being just kind of looked like that. He's just the, what is it, nerves, and
Yeah, it's like the nervous system, right?
and maybe each layer of him was going through this portal.
Mhm. That's kind of like my thinking, was that this was like the last stages of his body has been stripped, layer by layer, and now it's just his nervous system. This is like the last glimpse before he completely was taken into the portal.
Someone online wanted to know what is on the other side of that portal.
I saw that. Like I said, I think like my initial kind of thought process was what it's like afterlife, where he essentially
Okay.
you have to sacrifice your life or sacrifice yourself. The fact that you can't, like, I guess the whole point of alchemy is like this desire for precious material, desire to take something that's you know worthless, quote unquote. You take lead and then you can turn it into this
Sure.
precious material. So I just like the play on that where it's like you can't, it's not. And then the other part that I like kind of after the fact is like the process of me taking. I use, like, people yell at me all the time. I use like whatever I can get. So the oil paints that I used was like a base set,
Yeah.
your
No, I dig
college
it. I
style
dig it.
oil paint.
I know exactly
you
what you
know,
mean. You're just working with what you can get, you know?
I worked what I had and I took junk, and now it became a tool poster. So I
Yeah.
just love this, like,
You did your own
kind of
alchemy.
exactly. I figured that, like, it was a painting about alchemy. And then the other parts of there's a local Tibetan monk. I plan on making a post about it today with the old video. And he does these sand mandalas, and he says at the end of it, the whole process is about, you make this beautiful, gorgeous thing, and it's impermanent. He swipes it into a big pile of sand in the middle, and then typically they'll go and I believe it's like whatever your local water source is, devote the sand mandala sand back to the world, or
Okay.
back to nature. So at the end of these processions, it's more of like a teaching tool in Philly. Philadelphia has one of the largest populations of Tibetans for whatever reason, and there's like a big Tibetan, whatever culture going on, and he holds these as like a teaching experience, but also part of the continuing the spiritual experience of the whole thing. So at the end of it, he'll put it into a pile. Everybody collects a little bit, and he'll tell you. He says, put it in your garden. Don't keep it. This isn't meant to be like a little keepsake. And I'm a
Yeah.
hoarder. I love getting my little
Yeah.
trinkets and keeping the same. But in the full, kind of theme of the thing, I do like to put it here and there. So for these, again, I kind of spurred the idea. I took a little bit of that sand at the last stage, crushed it up, and all of the gold I used it in, and then the little, like, glowing footprints have mandala sand. So that was, again, my other. I was like, hey, I might as well go all in if I'm gonna do
So,
some alchemy, you know?
all this makes me think of is that you did your own, like, spell
So
to
again,
manifest. I mean, I
hmm
don't know if you
hmm
know. I know. I know probably a very. I don't want to say. I know something about magic, right? Whether
yeah,
it's like
it's probably very similar. I'm
what.
interested in it. I don't go full on,
Yeah,
but.
yeah, yeah. Me neither. Like, and again, I don't know how much you've heard, but like when it comes to Aleister Crowley and stuff, I mean, these guys were like
hmm
jerking off onto papers
Uh-huh.
and eating them and
Uh-huh.
cutting themselves and doing blood magic and shit.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I mean, you have some idea of that. Like
hmm
that's I'm not saying
Yeah, I
you
didn't.
go that far, but
Yeah, right.
you did put energy other than like I'm just gonna create this and put it out. Like you
Right. Right.
you at least had some awareness of what you were drawing that involved alchemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And magic. You, whether consciously or unconsciously, um, did your own alchemy, right? Just by
Mm-hmm.
the paint that you used and
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
materials that you used, and you also did some type of spell slash ritual
Yeah,
by
there you go.
using
I like that.
by using the sand, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm noticing while talking to you right now and looking at specifically the portal. And I might get some hate for this. It's probably the most Tool poster I've ever seen, if that makes any sense.
Hey man,
Now,
high praise. I've actually seen a couple people just saying like this is one of their favorite, and I'm like, I'll take it.
well, just the story in general. Again, it was written for, or I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was
Right.
designed for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the the process and idea and ritual behind it is all very Tool, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I can't. Again, I haven't talked to Alex Gray ever, but
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of rituals he's doing. I have talked
Mm-hmm.
to a few artists. Nobody's putting Tibetan sand or in in their footprints. I really
Mm-hmm.
like the
Mm-hmm.
footprints, by the way.
Yeah, that was the last. That was like a. This thing is so funny. Through the process, this one. So if you notice all the other ones and a lot of my prints, I usually do just a silhouette. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if it's just the way my brain works.
Like
I
black
can't
backgrounds.
exactly. I can't stand having to put it in a space, and now I have to render the whole space. So when I created the portal one, I came up with the idea. It had to be a full,
Yeah.
landscape painting, and also the realization was like, now I have to touch every square inch of this damn canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So it was frustrating for me. And at the end of it, me looking at it, I almost, not that I did. I mean, I put so much work into it. I was going to post it and share it, but I was like, I almost didn't even want to share it. I was like kind of disgusted at the end of the process. I was like, it doesn't really look like my work. I don't know how I feel about this. And then of course I post it, and then like immediately Adam messaged me and was like, hey, do you want to buy? Do you sell these? Like, I guess I
Immediate,
don't know
like
what the
how
hell I'm doing.
immediate?
Like within the night, I posted it, tagged him. The next 12 hour when I woke up, I had a message. Oh shit.
Right? What does that feel
So
like? What was the initial?
so the first one was a total freak out. Obviously,
Right.
you're a fan. I didn't really think it was gonna happen, especially like even way back with the Numa one. It was just a shot in the dark. And at the end of the day, like I really did this pure like I'm the way I always joke about it with like people talking about how do you like the biggest thing with being an artist is just production. Like you just got to keep doing it. And through my whole life,
Anything. Right.
all I want to do is just keep making. So like I can't help it.
No,
I'm gonna make it regardless of what the hell's going on in the world.
No,
I got to keep making.
and sometimes it's painful,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, there's some lulls where
tedious.
you get stuck in that kind of cycle of like you didn't make, I want to make, I'm not making, and I'm aware I'm not making. So to have like again to use like the fear inoculum is purely just inspiration. Like it was a blessing in disguise that I was like, oh, hell yeah, now I got a good 3 years, 4 years worth of inspiration to pull from and to work from. So it was like I was gonna make them just for my own art's sake, and the kind of throwing the shot in the dark was like a bonus, a
Well,
pretty huge bonus, but you know.
I mean, so you did a piece of art for every song on that album?
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the seven, the
Yeah.
seven like
Yeah,
full. I
yeah.
didn't do the interludes. Just again, there
We
weren't lyrics, so
you
it
have
would have
like
been
what
tough.
4 or 5 more albums you can pull from.
People keep saying they want me to do some like ladder out, and hey, I'm I need some more stuff. I was working on. I'm trying to do the same style thing for the Queens of the Stone Age most recent album. I just did a piece that is currently drying, and I got to lacquer it and finish that one and do the same. I'm just going to tag and throw it out there. The
That
guy,
was my that was one of my questions I have written down is like
yeah, right on.
if you were going to or if you have or are going to do any other bands.
Yeah, that's the goal. This is a huge first step, and it a lot gives you that little extra to be like, hey, here's a poster I did for Tool. I'd love to do, love to do some work for you guys. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of throw. I've talked to a lot of different artists, and there's a couple other tool artists where I just, this same thing, just shot them DMs and just said like, hey man, I see you do work for all kinds of people. What the how?
Yeah.
How the hell? And it's always the same thing as the
Gotta
exact.
talk to management.
Well, no, you just shoot it. You just throw it out. There's a lot of people, surprisingly enough, through DMs. You just got to find either management, like you said, you got to find the like secondary guys Instagram account. It's harder, obviously, going to like the official band page. It's
sure.
Like, I feel like it's very unlikely, but if you know enough, you can find one of the other band members, whatever. And I've had a little bit of success with that. For like the Queens of the Stone Age, the drummer, one of the guitarists have seen the stuff I'm posting, so it's still trickling through,
Yeah.
Maybe you need to do a little bit more ritual.
I am actually doing that for this one as well. Hey, it worked the first time. So.
Yeah. No,
I'm running out of that sand, man.
It's got to be. Well, you got to get more sand. You got to get something else.
I do.
Maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe you could take one of your tool posters and use burn it and use the ash.
There you go.
I wouldn't want
to sacrifice.
Do well.
Yeah, right.
I think that's kind of how that works, right? Magic in general.
I mean, that is the theme of the whole piece in general. So,
it's super wild. It's very interesting as well. Just again, meeting you and not only that, I relate. Right. I don't do art specifically yet. I recently purchased a screen printing table. Right.
Oh, right on.
I'm going to teach myself. I can't draw. I can't paint, but I feel like I do make short films. I have done photography. Okay. So I feel like there's a way that I can make specific art. Yeah. Well, I mean, right on. I don't want to say it out loud because I don't want to jinx it.
Understandable.
But I feel like there's a specific way I can take photography and Photoshop and whatnot, and,
absolutely,
and create something that is able to be screen printed and or whatever. But I've not attempted any physical art before, other than video and photography. Right. But I'm super interested in screen printing. I think it seems super fun, just to like put your hands in it and then
like.
No, I definitely like the thing I always say to people, and I've had a couple people kind of say the same thing, where it's like, I do love, especially hearing that idea of like somebody would seeing something there's another couple artists where they're saying, how did you, exactly the same conversation we're having, how the hell did you do this? And I told them the exact same thing. I'm like, dude, just produce. And again, worst case scenario, you didn't get it in, but you made art. So you're already on the positive side. You're putting stuff out there, especially if you want to be an artist, you want to create. The bare minimum you got to do is produce. You just got to keep putting it out there. And my other goal for like just the way that I work for myself, I don't necessarily really know what I'm doing here and there, but
nobody does.
Nobody does.
Nobody does at all.
The whole thing that I always try to stick with is know your strengths. Like you said, you're a photographer. I feel like you're already at a good place. You know what your strengths are, and work within those and I feel like you're hitting the nail on the head already. Like if you have some good photographs, you have some good ideas, throwing them in Photoshop. Silkscreen's a good starting point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of play. That's the one beauty of printmaking. We always talk about like it's the printmaking accidents. Man, stuff will happen in the you're gonna want to put your head through a wall to begin, just to warn you. But the positive side of that is it's a constant learning curve. And also, your mistakes will be light bulbs all the time.
And that's with anything.
Shit. It's very process oriented, but the process leads to positives for sure.
And again, I'm listening to you say that, and I'm not a newbie when it comes to that idea, right? So I make short films. I have for 10 years. I've been doing podcasting and it's the same thought process. It's just A, you just got to get started. B, you just got to keep producing. Even with this podcast, like, I don't know if you know any history behind this at all, but I mean, when I think it was in January 2022, I started, right?
Yeah, I kind of remember seeing it first spring up.
And same thing, super inspired by what was going on. I mean, I went around pretty much the world with it. I'm sure I can say this now. People haven't really said this out loud, but I ended up in Tool's studio at one point.
Oh, get the hell out.
Standing next, having shots with Danny Carey.
That's so awesome.
And it's funny because I don't drink. But when Danny Carey hands you a shot, you're like, all right. I don't have like an issue with alcohol. I just don't like.
It's funny. We're very similar.
I have an allergy.
Okay, so I have a physiological issue as well that does not agree with my stomach.
Exactly.
I don't drink, but if Danny Carey offered me a shot,
you're gonna take it.
Take the shot.
Gonna take that. And at one point you're like, how the fuck did I get here?
That has been my past week.
Yeah. And they know I exist, right? Like I said, I've gotten text messages from Adam Jones.
Awesome.
Talked to Danny Carey. They're not that keen on doing stuff like this, but
right.
But they know it exists. They understand. They've been cool in person the times that I've seen them. What else can you ask for, right?
Exactly, and that's kind of been my feeling throughout the whole. Just the fact that the initial one. So like even when I sent it, he reached out. He wanted to do the poster, and then the tour fell through. Obviously, that's heartbreaking. Obviously, I'm like, fuck. Like this is such a huge dream, and now this is. And then of course I'm, So, but then at the end of the day, like as time went on, I realized, like, dude, you shared your artwork with the person that inspired you to do it in the first place. They saw it. They dig it. It was like that should be enough, and it was. Took 4 years,
right?
And now this happened, so this was like obviously quite an awesome experience. But like I did have to realize like the magic of the stupid phone and Instagram.
Right.
I'm some random dude in Philadelphia who did a drawing and sent it to
same thing. Some random guy in Vegas who just decides he's going to talk about something, and then within a year you're like, what the fuck? I'm standing in front of Danny Carey's drum set. He's right there. There's Adam Jones's guitars and Justin's faces, and
that's awesome, dude.
I'm just here. I'll send you the pictures later. What pictures I would like to see are those original photos you took in Rome.
That's another plan. I'm actually, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go through my old platform or my what's it called, hard drives. I got to pull that's. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I have a good idea for like just showing the references I use and the inspiration for the direct. I think that would be like a cool thing to see.
It definitely would be. I want to ask questions about the sacred geometry in that. How do you decide? Did you find those symbols? Do you know what those symbols mean? Can you tell me what they mean?
The ones for the portal one so that's like a transmutation circle. So that's like, I think Aleister Crowley, some of his books have used those, and it's like my own interpretation, and I adjusted it a little bit, but that is the, kind of known symbology people use for alchemy. So like the 3 circles in the center, like surrounding the triangle, are your base elements that you put in to create. So honestly, it's been so damn long, I forget which elements that I chose, because I basically, again, in the theme of it, I'm like, I did a ton of research, and I'm like super analytical about everything. Sure. So I wanted to like find the right ones. And I'm like, well, alchemy, it's all,
It's interpretive.
Exactly. It's so like, I might as well make my own. So I'm pretty sure I chose lead. I think it was like still within the like trying to pull from the Tool lyrics. I think I used some of those lyrics from like The Grudge, and then the lyrics from, not the lyrics, this interview. And again, like it's so funny when some people would ask, like, especially when I'd share it on Reddit, they'd say like, hey, what's the inspiration? Then I had to be like, I kind of don't even remember. It's like such a long process.
It's 4 years ago.
But even like within a piece, sure. It's like from initial idea, listening to the song, doing research to finished painting, it gets kind of lost in the sauce,
Yeah.
So I'd have to kind of go back, look through my sketchbooks and be like, oh, right. That, I was listening to read a Plato blurb that was relative. And then so like they're kind of all over the place, like a scatter shot. And then I pull cool visuals in to then make the like final image,
You know what I realized, and this might be a negative. You might have to put that much work into everything.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think I don't think you're allowed to half-ass art.
No, no. And I forget it was either Alex. There's another artist. Well, it could have been Chet. There's one of these people, and that was exactly their sentiment, where it's like if you're not putting in that much effort, and then also the idea of putting in a little bit of that magic, a little bit of something else. If you don't believe in, again, like kind of like what we talked to, like I don't fully invest in any of anything really. Like
No, I
I'm a
completely
very
understand.
analytical person, but there's still a little something.
It doesn't mean
There's
you're
still
not
a
going to
little.
try.
Exactly. There's a little part of, I guess it was like being raised Catholic. There's a little something in the back of my head. I was
No,
like, well, maybe.
you know what I think it is? It's obviously that, but we're so analytical that we're not going to leave any part like
How about it? I got to throw it out there.
untouched. Yeah, it's like I may not believe, but I'm not stupid enough not to try.
How about it? I like that. That's a very good way to put it.
Because
I got to
I'm
cross every
yeah,
dot every I and cross every T.
even the untangible ones. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
I
How
don't
about
have
it?
it. Yeah, I got to throw that out there too. I'm the exact same way. I'm not again because life is so unexplainable, and again there
Mm-hmm.
is logic. It's like who am I to say whether or not it could have
Mm-hmm.
been that sand you put in there
How
that
about it?
there
Exactly.
was some
There's nothing to
frequency.
say that it wasn't.
No, and it could be all together. But again, that's where I'm getting to with the last statement is like because who knows what it was. You're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might have to replicate that scenario every time
Yeah. How
and put
about it? I
that
got to
much.
find a new little bit of
Yeah,
special
and
dust.
that might be the fun of it too. It's like
That's a good point. I
make
do kind of
it
dig that.
making the like you
The ritual
the
part of
ritual.
each
Yeah,
piece. I
yeah.
do like that. You've kind of spurred me. I'm gonna run with this.
I appreciate that. What is it about Tool that lends itself to be like perfect for visual mediums?
So for me, a tool, like especially at that point in my life, I also was like, and it's still on the back burner. It's one of my things that like I definitely want to do is like some type of film, stop motion animation. I'm so into the world of visual effects. So it just like again, like that time in my life, I went to a school for it's called Kappa, Creative and Performing Arts. So like that whole world's there. We have the creative writers, we have people making short films in high school. So it was just like the blend of everything really kind of spoke to me. The fact that they took their art, it always seemed to me it was hand in hand, the visuals, the music videos, everything was like this, kind of unity for creating their music as well. So I think that to me really spoke. And even like it's ironically with the Queens of the Stone Age is like we were talking about earlier, these huge lulls in between Tool albums. I'm like crazy into them. I love all the music, like the special effects and all this. Well, then there's this lull. So then like Soundgarden became my kind of fill in, and then Queens of the Stone Age came out with their album like Clockwork, and that was the same kind of vibe where like they met this artist who's now been doing their artwork for the last three albums, and it was like this really cool unity of just like these cool videos. They did this great lead up to that album where they would just do like little teasers of a song with this animated very specific style. So I think that's what definitely resonates with me is like when the band at least puts in that little extra effort of kind of making like an experience. I do really like the visual musical tie-in for sure.
Hmm.
So if a band came to you and was like, let's say Queens of the Stone Age, they're like, hey, we really like your stuff. We're doing 30 shows. Could you physically screen print 125 posters per show for them?
I mean, I could. It would be one hell of an undertaking. The shop. So what I do for my like, day job now, one of my professors from college, we like met up after the fact. We were kind of sharing a studio for a minute. I was like splitting his off. It was this gorgeous spot. Again, I've another thing that I've kind of slipped my way into. It faces Center City, Philadelphia. We're on the fourth floor or the third floor, and we have access to a roof to hang out on. And he has slowly got me into this job. It's a place called Brandywine Archives, and it does like I want to say it's like an art collective, but they get artists from all over the world, they bring them in, and then we as printmakers recreate their paintings. Sometimes sculptures. This one artist, Ellen Atsui, we're working with, he does these assemblages of like bottle caps. And so we do production, and I have done production. So I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind. If anybody ever reached out to say like, hey, could you print us, a full edition for a show? And I've always like actually had this kind of thought experiment where I'm like, how the hell would how could I do a run of 700 prints? It would be, I'm sure I would want to die by the end of it, but it would be doable. It's
No.
really the space. The thing that I love, like thinking about that idea is like when you print an edition of 700 prints, the drying like where the hell you got to do them in runs of 50, let them dry, do another run of 50, let them dry. Like it's a lot of space,
Well, tool posters specifically, they're not screen printed, right?
I believe this process, yeah, it's some form of like machined, either a lithography process. They're definitely done like mechanically now.
Yeah.
Very highly. There's not somebody pulling.
No. And not only that, there's too many gradients.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's still dot matrix, so they're still separated. Because even if it was like a lithograph, it's still like a very similar process to screen printing, where you put it into the dot matrix, separate it into like. Actually, I know it is because they had me separate my file into CMYK. So it's the same printmaking process, but I'm pretty sure it's like a digital. It's executed, mechanically.
Sure. I'd love to talk to those printer people, because
I know that's the one I'd love to find out. Just even for my own work, I've always wanted to like know how the hell they do these on the metallics, and just for my own kind of like an extra little feather in the cap process.
Because getting into posters in general, like I don't have just tool posters. I have some Pucifer ones. I have some other bands. I just once saw the Postal Service the other day and got one from them.
Nice.
But it seems like Tool is just everything about their posters is just not completely, but it's just weirdly different than what everyone else is doing.
Well,
and I'm sure that's by design.
I think it's like these last couple. Like I think like that first one when they were getting their feet back into it when Fear Inoculum came out. I think it's like, for me, it's that same thing that I resonated with when I was younger. That they're trying to make it's it's a show poster at the end of the day, but it's clearly more art based.
Yes.
It's like a piece, as opposed to your stereotypical venue, 3-4 colors, simple silk screen, very graphic. And I obviously as an art, like I appreciate it because I love being able to have it's always such a bummer when I've gone to so many shows, and I'm not going to throw shade at anybody, but there's so many times where I would go to shows and then there's like a lot of local artists where I'm like, I want it because I went to the show, but sometimes the poster, you're just like, what does this have to do with the band? What is it,
right? Oh, there's a boat.
Right.
There's just
there
like
was
a
one
boat.
show I went to where it was like a giant glass of beer. And I'm like, what does this have to do with Soundgarden?
Does Soundgarden like beer?
And more time, again, I'm not trying to throw shade, and everybody's got to do their job, but it is nice seeing just that little bit of effort. They find people that are within the same kind of vibe, the same vein. I appreciate that just purely as a fan. Being able to.
And no, I think
cool artists.
It exposes people to artists and different types of art that you like you said, you wouldn't really find on the average gig poster.
It for sure. The full rendered images is such a cool thing to be using, for sure.
So this kind of leads me to what has the reception been in the last week?
I gotta say, it has been over. So that was the other part that, like, just in the back of my mind, all the way back in 2019, even just when I post on Instagram, like I was mentioning with the portal picture, you get this stupid self-doubt sometimes, whatever. And
Imposter
there was
syndrome.
a part of me, exactly. There was a part of me that was like, oh, fuck, like, I hope people, because so being in all these Facebook groups, there's a couple groups. And again, from 2019, and then just holding my breath, hoping this happens, I would see when they would post an artist, and then you see like people kind of tear it up, and I'm like, guys,
Oh
like,
yeah.
the artists are in these groups, guys. What the fuck?
Like, this one
I feel
sucks.
terrible.
This one's
Right.
terrible.
And luckily, knock on wood, I haven't seen it. There's been a very, very small number of that, but it's so overwhelmed with the positives where, like I said, there's been so many people that are like, this is my favorite poster they've ever done. And I'm like, holy shit. Like,
So I kind of know the process of, like, Adam pays, or the band management pays like a specific amount for the art, and then they send you X amount of your own poster sign that you get to sell. Have you decided what you're going to do with all that? Like, are you going to do remarks?
So I think I don't know if this is just their newest deal. I'm getting a very limited number. So I'm going to only be able to really it's a shame. I have like family, even, and friends. I've been like trying to reach out to some of these poster groups and be like, hey, if you know anybody that has like reasonably priced unsigned ones, I'll buy my own, just because I want to be able to give them to my parents. So I'm getting such a small number that I'm going to only be doing I want to do like the full rendered remarks to them. So I probably will post like maybe 3 that I'm going to like do like fully integrated. There's like been a couple ideas that I have been brewing since this dropped, where I want to do like a full integrated addition to the painting, essentially.
So I got to ask, how limited? Because I know they were around like 50 before.
I think I'm getting 5.
What?
Yeah, I think I'm getting 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
I hope that, and you don't have to answer this, but I hope they compensated you better than the other end.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I told him at the beginning, I was like, dude, I would do this for free.
Yeah, I know you would, but
yeah, no, I've heard that the other, like the original, I've heard that 50 number before, but again, like I wasn't saying no.
No, of course not.
He could have said nothing, and I'd be like, sure, bud, here's the 5. I don't give a shit.
So 5, dang,
I'm getting 5. So since it was kind of a blessing in disguise, this is also kind of secondary to it. Originally, they reached out. The Philly show is right after my birthday. It's a day after my birthday. So the guy's saying, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Philly." He's like, "Oh, we got to get you the Philly show." So he told me, he said, "No guarantee. That's not my part, but I'm going to put down that we're going to try to get you the Philly show." So in my mind, I had another month. I'm preparing. I'm going to do like a hand-bound book of the whole series.
Sure.
And I'm currently just in the design phase of that.
Yeah.
So again, in my mind, I had a month to do all of this. And then all of a sudden on, what was it, Monday, I start getting sales in my online store. And then I start getting all these tool followers. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then finally, I think it was Rod, the guy that runs the tool group. He said, hey, I'm there. I saw your artwork. You're the show for Loveland. And I'm like, oh, what?
So you didn't even know?
I didn't even know. And then I got all these people messaging me saying, hey, can you confirm? And I'm like, dude, I'm not lying. I'm not being coy with you. I have no fucking idea.
Right.
So it was like, it's been quite a wild week.
Yes. That's so wild. Yeah, you're right. It's so wild. Just, again, having that initial interaction with him, with Adam, touching base here and there. Then you eventually talk to management at some point, right? How long ago did you talk to management?
So that was the other part. So it was like, this was like, again, I didn't hear nothing. Adam had mentioned this a year ago at this point, and this was like the last post. I just tagged him, threw it out there. Kind of at this point, I was like, whatever. It's so close to the tour. It was, I think, a week before the tour started. So in the message, he says, hey, you want to do this for the fall? Obviously, yes. And he just says, like, it's pretty close. So you got to get your shit together. So it was like a week out. So that was also part of the thing where I was like, I don't know why I never considered it could be the first show, but I thought there's like, oh, I got weeks. I got plenty of time.
Yeah.
But again,
and they're going to let me know.
Right. I thought for sure I'd get at least a little heads up, but hey, it was a fun experience,
right,
to say the least. But I at least had the shit ready in my store since I had already made these a year ago. So that was other nice little bonuses. I'm flooded right now.
Sure.
I just sent out, I think, 30 prints, and I still got a couple that I got to send out. So
of the Portal one.
Yeah, of the Portal, and people are starting to buy some of the other ones from the series. So it's like, I got nothing to complain about.
No.
I would have loved 50. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I got nothing to complain about.
No. What can you do?
So you have 5, and you're going to do 3. 5. I can't wait to see what you
One's
add.
going on my wall.
Oh, yeah, of
One
course.
I'm gonna just keep as like a little nest egg, and then the others I've been excited, and also like I mean, like the people reach out that want to get little additions and stuff, and I've been kind of brewing, thinking of some cool things. I think like my plan is for those three, I'm gonna go all out, and then I'm just gonna post them individually in my store, so people get an idea of
Sure.
what kind of remarks I'm going to be doing.
So
So then,
will you take people's that send
oh
them to you?
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so, like I've seen some artists like they try to get like if anybody wants something, I'm in. I'm so like down with this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to just do a little doodle if people want it, and then like a signature, or if people want the full on, a painted edition.
Sure.
I'm down.
I'm gonna have to find one and send it to you.
Hell yeah. Like I said, I'm thrilled. There was one guy that posted in one of the groups. I guess he's like somehow friends with Justin, and he had posted Justin's like holding my print up
Yep. I seen
with
it.
his kid, and he had reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, we really this was more just for my kid. I would," and I was like, "Dude, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am more than happy if you want to pay to send it to me. I am more than happy to sign it, doodle.
I got another question about the art and fans. Has anybody else tried to tell their interpretation of your poster and like the symbolism? Like, have you got any like weird?
I did get one message of somebody on Instagram had said like, and this has happened a couple times where it's like kind of the Alex Gray fan base.
Sure.
Similar, there's like crossover. So I had this one girl reach out and she said like, I was on like an ayahuasca vision and I saw a portal that was, you know, surrounded by two figures, two stone figures, and it opened up and I didn't even see, I don't even know if she said she was a Tool fan. She's like, I didn't even really have any relation to this, and this just came up on my page, and this is like such a crazy experience. I'm like, hey man, and I told her I was like, this is a real place. You want to research it? See if it's something that you saw. But for the most part, it's really just been people just saying, I haven't really gotten many interpretations. That was really the only one that stuck out. That I was like, hey, that's again, it's like I'm not here to tell you that you didn't have that experience,
So that leads me to like substances. We've talked about alcohol. I can't drink. Weed makes me paranoid. I'm sure I've done a few hallucinogenics back in the day when I was younger, when my brain could take it. But there's obviously like a correlation between psychedelics and tool art. Was there any extracurricular activities involved with creating any of this?
So I will say again, it's funny that seems that we have a very similar experience. When I was in high school, there was a point where I was taking so much acid and mushrooms that the tolerance wasn't working out, and I had to like my group of friends. I had to be like, guys, y'all can keep doing what you want. I got to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
There was a guy that was like a local to where our high school was in Center City, Philadelphia, and it was like a friend of a friend. He would just dose, like he was like 20 years old and he was dosing 14-year-olds just for fun, just to watch us get all tripped out, And
It seems
when
kinda
you're
sketchy.
14, you're like, yeah, well, it wasn't, it sounds worse for sure. It was like a friend, there's nothing, terrible going on, but it's still in hindsight, yeah, you shouldn't be dosing 14-year-olds. So I have dabbled quite a bit. I want to say I've done my lifetime's worth in my teenage years. So to say that for sure, I'm sure influenced,
But you weren't like taking mushrooms
themes.
and coming up with ideas, and
it definitely makes you have like a different train of thought for sure.
You know what it is with weed, and I think this is why I get paranoid. It makes me incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that.
So
for me, it's like the way my brain, again, very analytical, it takes it to like another level. So like especially like again, like the way I think I mentioned it before, the way I normally will make art is it's just something random throughout the day. We'll go like, oh, and it'll literally give me like a visual, and I'm on some of my Instagram posts I do it where it's like these really terrible phone scribbles, and it's purely just to remind me of what that kind of visual. And it's a slow burn. It doesn't. Like maybe a couple times a month, if I'm lucky, I'll get a cool visual idea.
Yeah.
And I feel that definitely smoking will help that idea because it gets me thinking in bizarre ways, and then I'm like, ooh, that'll be a good idea.
When you set out on this journey, Tool obviously has a very specific visual style, right?
Hmm.
And I'm guessing when you started doing these pieces of art, you're doing your own style, but
Hmm.
also leaning into this universe, right? Of
Right,
tool
right.
art. I guess where is the balance between you as an artist and also wanting to resonate with the Tool fan base and the Tool ideology and
Right, right.
like I guess the question is if Tool wasn't a band, what would your art look like?
A really good question. So, like, and clear, I think, like, having been, like, such a fan when I was younger and then, like, having the Alex Gray connection, I definitely like visionary art. I really dig and even again, I'm sure that's definitely where it really kinda stemmed
I
from,
know that's a
is
shitty question.
doing no, that's I mean, it's a good like, it's part of what I was thinking, you wanna keep the aesthetic, but you also want to put yourself in there. Wanna put your own kind of fan. I've had that, feedback sometimes where people are like, this is pretty much just like Alex Gray,
No, it's
the
not.
Alex Gray
No, it's
artwork. And
not.
I'm like, but and also I'll take that, if you're making that parallel. But I do want it is a conscious thing that I want to put my own little spin. And ironically, I think the piece that he ended up choosing is the most me. It's obviously the anytime you do anatomy and stripping away layers and stuff, it's gonna, you know, kind of give people the idea of visionary artists. And that's like definitely like the theme, the vibe. And part of why I like the that part, and maybe it is part of Alex Gray's kind of theme, is like it takes the individualism out of it. Like it's
Sure.
relative.
I
We
understand
all
completely.
share all of that stuff, and
We
that
all have
is
a nervous
definitely
system.
exactly. That's something that I like and like is a struggle. Like when I would come up with references, especially like when I was doing the printmaking and these woodcuts, you know, you can only use yourself as a reference so many damn times and your friends and your family. So it's like nice to be able to like, get like anatomical references and I can when I come up with a goofy idea, I can make cool references because that's again like the way my brain I'm not great with the fully fleshing. It's like a struggle. That's why this painting for the portal was like bashing my head into the wall because I had to make up a lot of it. And that's not my strong side. I have to have like the concrete thing for a lighting reference, and
Gotcha. That's why you take
it's a
photos.
struggle. Exactly. I take tons of photos. I love trinkets. I got tons of shit that I'm always using and taking photographic references. You know, it just streamlines the process. It's already a slow go. So yeah, I think like it's definitely part of the process. I have that in mind, and I do, like you said, you want to emulate the kind of themes thematically, just the aesthetic
Well,
that they have.
it's a loaded question at the
Hmm.
core because it's like asking somebody, you know, I guess it's like asking Tarantino, like if there weren't
Right.
these
Like the
exploitation films, what kind of films would you make? And it's like, well,
right.
who the fuck knows?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like Tool's been a band so long, and they've had specific art so long that
Right. Right. It's hard to
now,
imagine.
yeah, now of course there are guys like you where that aesthetic has inspired them to be a specific kind of artist. And
Hmm. Hmm.
it, again, I know it was a loaded question, but I just
No, I
was
mean it's
curious.
it's definitely something I think about, and it was part of kind of the process of creating this series. Was like trying to make it my own kind of, and then obviously it's impossible not to do it, but also to like you don't want to be derivative. You do
Sure.
want it to be your own
I
kind
don't.
of thing.
Believe me, I said this earlier in the episode. It's one of the most tool posters, especially now that I know the story. I can
High
I
praise.
I guess I can see where somebody would be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, that's Alex Grayish," but not
Right.
in my opinion,
Hmm.
um, because it has a nervous system, I guess.
Right. I say it's
Um,
like think whenever you use the anatomy, but I think like if you look at like some of my prints and stuff, it definitely still has you know like again,
I
it's hard to pull from it, but like I think to get to like the question, like I
I
think
think
I
it.
would still be making this type of stuff because like
Yeah.
as a kid, that the guy that did the sand mandala with the paint, I've been seeing him literally since I was an infant. He's like a local. He'll do these every year. So like that type of artwork has always been an influence. So like I feel like even without like the Alex Gray thing, I feel like that that aesthetic, that kind of vibe is still kind of like a true line, you know? It's something that resonated with me, and I feel like it probably would have.
Either
I would
way.
have found my way to this type of thing
Sure.
either way, you know?
You know what it reminds me of more than Alex Gray is just Adam Jones's like visual style period. Like a lot of the figures remind me
Yeah, a
of
little dark. That was definitely kind of like I like to. I wouldn't say I'm like necessarily like in the dark arts. I'm like kind of wedged in between the visionary art and the dark art. Like I don't think it's like macabre or like
no. It's
you
definitely
know.
occulty for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um
That's what I'm going for.
right?
What do you think about people like reselling your shit?
It's another fun, I having been an artist already and on a very small, obviously it's going
Yeah.
to be much different now, but I have experienced this already. So when I was in college, they do this thing in Philly called the Rittenhouse Fine Art Sale. It's like, how they do like art fairs here and there. And this is like one of the more, not prestigious, but it's like a big one. People spend, I want to say the tables are like 550 or 600, and you get artists from all over the world. And anyway, when we were in college, the guy that ran the place was like good friends with my professors, and they would give college students $50 tables in the center. The real artists had the outside. And anyway, people would come in and basically like make the investment essentially. They'd kind of suss out like, ooh, you look like you have potential. They'd buy your work. And there's been a couple times now where people would reach out and say, hey, I'm pretty sure this is your signature. I bought this years ago, and I'm trying to sell it at a consignment shop for $500 now. I just wanted to can you give me clarification or a proof of purchase, blah blah blah. So I've experienced a little bit of it, and honestly, the thing that I do like, and I'll thank people a billion times. People saw my art, they saw Adam sharing it, and they bought a ton over
Yeah.
those 4 years. So for me, kudos to y'all. And now you get to benefit as well. People took the investment, they took the gamble, they bought my shit before I was, part of this huge, awesome group.
Yeah.
So if you want to benefit, hell yes. It's cool to see,
What I will say is that the artist, look, I know there are dudes that bought 20 or
Right.
15.
Mm-hmm. As it
In
goes, unfortunately.
in this scenario, the artist needs some of those back. So sell them to him back. Sell them to him back. There are some flippers out there that got a shit ton of your posters. In this scenario, the artist needs a couple back.
I agree.
What's your favorite Tool song?
So since Fear Not, I gotta say, like I was a Lateralis, tried and true. That was like and when I was in college, they're like this is not even an exaggeration. For I want to say almost 2 years, it just stayed in my CD player in my car, and that was just like my car songs,
I got White Pony in there.
Okay, there you go. So very, just I want to call, but I think since Fear Inoculum came out, I like only put on Fear Inoculum. It just itches some specific scratch in my brain, man.
You know what I think it is? We spent however long listening to those 4 albums,
right.
and we know them so much, and we listened to them so many times. And like you said,
It's
you had
new.
Lateralis in your car for 2 years, right?
For 2 years, right? I know and that. So back to like taking acid, that was one of the only times I ever like did drugs and listened to it. So there's like specific burned into my brain that Lateralis album.
So I completely resonate with that. Where it's like when I put on Tool, I tend to do Fear Inoculum now. I guess it's not that I don't listen to other stuff, and it'll come on and it's great, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love Swamp Song, but there's just something about that new one, I guess, that just
dude.
super
I want to say
re-listenable.
Like when the first listen through, Numa was the song, and obviously it's got like that incredible little ending. Like it just slaps. It hits hard from the first listen, but after many listens, I think Descending, the like crescendo, is like those two. It's hard to choose.
There's a part in Descending that was like the first one I attached myself to, especially. It's like when Maynard comes back in, because he only sings for the first 3 minutes, and then he starts talking about his wanton struggles or whatever. But that little drum part,
yep, I know exactly what part you're talking about.
that I think I listened
it
to it
does
like
hit.
30 times in a row when I first got it. And then I'm like, I started drifting into Invincible for a long time.
Yeah, it's a solid one.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like watching The Office a bunch. You can just like put it on and have it in the background and have it
Then
around.
you
And there's so much going on, and you know it, and I don't know, and it's good.
right.
I don't know.
You'll hear a new little part. You'll hear
Yeah,
another little like, oh shit.
it's entertaining.
hmm
It's
That is
catchy.
the one thing that like I feel like their music is, and I think that's probably why I like Fear Inoculum the most. Is part of why I kind of fell in love with their music in the beginning. It's so dense, and I said like my family's like half musicians, half artists for like the last 4 generations. So like my brothers are all drummers, bassists. I play music as well, but obviously I followed doing art more. So like having dense music that I can really sink my teeth into is great. And like their music always does exactly that, where you'll listen to it and all of a sudden I'll hear, Justin's bass part that I've listened to the song a million times, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, I've
Yeah.
never heard that before.
Or you thought it was guitar, but then
Right, exactly.
again, I saw them like 13 times last year, and there's definitely a bunch of times where I'm like, that's bass.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a couple Justin parts. I think on some Latter Isle songs, and definitely Fear Not, or like I forget which song. It might be Invincible, where it's like that heavy synth. It's Danny.
Yeah,
It's Danny playing
yeah.
on the. I was like, wait,
On this
what?
gigantic
Right,
fucking
that
thing
keyboard thing.
behind his drum
You're
set
right.
that's like super huge. You're like, all right,
Yeah, I can see that
cool.
coming.
All right. So if you had this is the last two, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to artists who are also fans of a particular band? How do you think they should go about getting their art recognized by that band?
So that I've actually had this many DMs since, and it's the thing that I even just believe with my own art, and like so regardless of what your end goal is, always one, make your goal insane. As I have learned, make your goals insane. Why the hell not?
Yeah, why not?
Shoot for the top, but at the end you just keep producing. You're gonna get discouraged. And I think like also going into this again, the purpose was just to make inspired art that I'm happy with and I'm pleased with. The goal, like if this never panned out, sure, I'd be bummed. But that shouldn't be your drive. Like the driving force should just be the creation. You should still.
The
I've heard
journey
many
itself.
artists exactly. Like I've heard so many artists, even Tool. I'm pretty sure the guys from Queens of the Stone Age. I've heard him say this. Like all my favorite, like Pink Floyd. I've heard in interviews they say this. Create for you, end all be all. Whatever you're into, whatever you're inspired by, be selfish in your creation, and then shoot your shot. Then put it out there. But at the end, you should always be. I think it's kind of like back to what we were talking about with the mysticism and doing the ritual. Like you should still do it as like a sacred kind of thing. It's
Sure.
we live one life, and my kind of always rolling thought in my head is like, what is my lasting thing? What am I leaving?
Yeah. No, I have that in my
Is it going to
brain
be
all the time.
music? Is it going to be art? Is it going to be film? Is it? But I gotta leave something.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Or at least try to leave something, if
Right.
anything.
Exactly. That is the goal, and that's like one of the other parts of this that really like that is kind of my mission in life since as far back as I can remember. I've always wanted to be an artist. Seeing Dali and seeing these like Van Gogh in the art museum, I was like, that's me. I want to do that. And to get to any level of people sharing my artwork with like such a huge fan base is such a fucking great experience. That's all I want is just to share my artwork. So having this much of outpouring of support, and it's unreal.
I want to share a quote that I have recorded from it's something Maynard said.
hmm
I'd be curious if you've heard this, and or I think it just relates to so much of what you're saying that I
hmm
I feel like I have to show it to you.
hmm hmm
And let me know if you can hear this.
Be happy with what your decisions are. You're on your
Can
own.
you
You
hear
don't
that?
owe anybody
hmm
anything. But if you're doing your job and you're doing it accurately enough and you're expressing from the heart, from the core, from your experiences and your intuition, other people are going to resonate with that. It's going to resonate with
hmm
them. They're going to get something out of it. Their day might go better because of what your true, honest approach to what you're doing. You're going to help other people. You're going to help yourself. You're going to help your family. But just understand at the end of the day, nobody owes you as an artist any kind of accolade. You don't owe them anything. They don't owe you anything. You're just doing.
The fucking nail on the head. I mean, 100%. I may even have heard that. I think he's one of the. There's like a blurb from one of their live shows years ago when I was like 12 that I heard that's always resonated with me. Where he says, take the energy that we just put out there, and now you go create. And that's also like been a thing that I kind of sticks with
I like
me.
that one.
It's like the same vibe. Is like, and if I love fucking hearing when people reach out and say this is inspiring me to do the same thing. And I kind of back to the question you asked is like, if you have any inkling or inclination to do that, do it. Just
Yeah.
like, even what you saying with the silk screen, hell yes.
No,
go for it, because what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. You learn something new is literally
exactly.
the worst.
You get a new skill, you're being creative. But I do love what he said with the like, being vulnerable, I think, is the most important thing. Like I said, like with that painting, it was a struggle. I didn't really fucking like it. And like there's been multiple times now where I've done this where it's like a really personal piece. I did a print kind of like the first bump I had on Instagram. I did this piece where I'm like peeling my skin off, and I did half of it painted and the half was like a woodcut, so it looked like the top part of me was all like, like woodcut, black and white, and then the rest was painted. It was a very vulnerable piece, and that one resonated with people more than probably anything until now. So it's like I wholeheartedly agree that like you do have to be vulnerable. You do have to, like, that idea of like, don't create for the goal. Create for you. Have your goals, have your aspiration, but like there is something to be said about like it is like a sacred kind of personal thing, creation, regardless of what it's music, art,
well,
anything.
If we got anything from this podcast, it's like
you have to put something into it, whether that's something of yourself, whether that's sand or blood or
yeah, right.
or energy. You had to put something into it. And yeah, you're definitely, I think, inspiring not only me, but other people. It just shows that like, it's not unobtainable, whatever your goal is.
Yeah. I would have never thought that this was ever possible,
Well, at the end of the day, it's just like, we're all just people, right?
Yeah, right. We're all experiencing this crazy ass world and trying to make our lives and make a sustainable living,
Well, I think it's Tool specifically and artists in general, big bands like this, they're put on pedestals, right?
For sure.
Where we look at them like they're these gods. And yeah, they're really good at what they do.
But they're just dudes.
They're just dudes. And not only that, they're dudes that need help sometimes from other artists. Right.
And I'm sure struggle themselves and have doubts themselves. That's the part I like really did find funny, is like multiple times where I would be like, thanks. I like really appreciate you sharing. Like, sure, bud.
Yeah, because it's
hell yeah, dude.
As easy as it might seem for him to be able to go out and be like, all right, I have 40 shows. I need to pick 35 artists. Right. And it just, that seems daunting. And it's like, all right, I have to go. And then all of a sudden you come in and you're like, hey man, what about this? And you just knocked off one for him. And he's like, all right, now it's 34.
Yeah, right. How about it?
All right, this leads me to my last question. And you might have answered this already, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
I'll say it again.
What does it mean to you personally now to have your art featured as a, official Tool poster, given your history as a fan? Like, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it is quite surreal, I gotta say. It still hasn't, I don't think it's going to sink in until like the tour's long past. Honestly, when I get the damn box and I'm holding it in my hand is finally when it's going to sink in. Because even still seeing the pictures. And
you don't have one right now.
I don't have one yet. Like everybody keeps asking me, hey, let me get an AP. I'm like, can you send me one? I haven't seen a thing yet. So yeah, it's quite hard to even, again, like the goal just being an artist and being able to sustain myself one is like I'm now just being able to do it. Like I finally get this job with the place Brandywine, and I'm like slowly, finally finding sustainability. It's a struggle, man. And I'm sure every artist I'm sure you talk to, you do art fairs, you do the online set. It's a hustle. It's a daily, 7-day a week. There's lulls that get scary as hell, and then you'll have these peaks where you're fucking overwhelmed. So the whole process, it's really hard to put into words, man. It's surreal is the only thing that I can say. It's fucking surreal, hard to wrap my mind around.
Well, Mike, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's
totally,
I would say, definitely top 3 interviews in my opinion. Right now, this was super interesting. There was so much in there. We could definitely keep going if we wanted to.
Yeah, you got to shut me up.
No. It's this kind of interview is why I'm doing this, right? You could see just from talking to you, I can see the heart, you know, and that's one of the things I really like about Tool is that it's authentic, right? And I feel like you did something truly authentic, whether it was conscious or unconscious. And, you know, I think I'm not that good at explaining art and something, whatever. I'm sure people get the gist. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say is that you did something extremely genuine and it paid off. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to come and tell me just how genuine it was.
Yeah, more than happy to, man. Like I said, I can geek out about art and music and for forever.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you come back on.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm more than happy to.
Do me a favor, plug yourself. Where can people find your art? Where can people
the best
buy
place
your stuff?
Definitely like Instagram is like my probably the most constant. I do have like a TikTok, and it's MIKGM is my Instagram, and then my web store is Left Handed Press at Big Cardell. But if you just search one word, Left Handed Press, I'm like the first search that comes up. That's my web store, and that's where everything for all the Tool stuff I'll be posting will definitely be Instagram, and Left Handed Press is where everything will end up.
I never heard. Did they make shirts of yours too?
No, so this tour, this is the first damn tour they didn't do the shirts. I'm like, fuck, man.
I wonder if they're gonna do it later. Weird.
I don't know. I heard, I saw rumblings on Reddit where, I don't know who knows the validity, but somebody was saying like halfway through the tour they're going to start doing, but I don't think so, because like with the contract when we were discussing it, they didn't mention the shirts at all, and I think that they just dropped them for whatever reason. Who knows? I don't know.
Weird.
Because again, like I thought I was supposed to be for Philly, so I would assume if it was like a later thing, So I don't think that they're going to be doing the shirts, unfortunately.
Well, hopefully they pick another piece of your art for Philly.
I hope so.
Well, again, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Congratulations, and people go buy some more of his art on his pages. And if you have extra love limb posters, send this guy some. He needs them.
How about it?
All right, man. I'm gonna just stop. Spiral Out Podcast is produced by me, your host, Chris West, edited by me, researched by me. Everything is pretty much just done by me. Go to our website, spiraloutpod.podbean.com. Follow us on Instagram at spiral_out_pod. Facebook, Spiral Out Podcast. And again, if you want to see some of the images associated with this episode, click the link in the show notes and it'll take you there. Again, thank you for listening. Spiral Out. Pod dismissed. Wait, that's another show.